I'm Callie and this is Crash Course Literature, and today we will be discussing The Stranger by Albert Camus.
It's Erkin. I love that book.
Great, Taylor. Now let me tell everyone why everyone should love this book too. First off, Albert Camus was a very interesting man. Born in French imperialized Algeria in 1913, Camus was a world-renowned philosopher and writer. He is known for the concept of the absurd and the notion of revolt. He thought that absurdity was a defining human characteristic, while the notion of revolt referred to a state of mind. He was also known to be radical by means of philosophy and unloyal by means of love and family. Camus had numerous affairs in his life, and a dislike for marriage, which are ideals reflected by the character Meursault in The Stranger. The book begins with Meursault receiving the news that his mother had just passed away. He demonstrates very little emotion during the funeral. This emotional indifference will backfire on him later in the book.
The day after the funeral, he had his normal routine until he comes across Marie, a former co-worker. He starts a relationship with her. The next day, he concludes that nothing has changed after all.
A few days go by when he runs into his neighbor, Raymond Sinte, who asks him for a favor. Sinte tells Meursault that he has suspected his mistress was cheating on him, and that he wants Meursault to write a letter to her to incite grief. Meursault says sure he would, and Sinte then considers them pals.
A few days later, him and Marie hang out again. When Maria asks if he loves her, Marie replies, "I told her it didn't mean anything, but that I didn't think so," which admits that he sees her as friends with benefits. When they return to Meursault's apartment, they can hear Raymond beating his mistress, and a police officer arrives soon after. Raymond then asks Meursault to testify for him at the police station, which he agrees to do.
After he gets bailed out of jail, Raymond's friend Masson invites them all to his beach house. After work, Marie then asks him if he wants to marry her, to which he says again, it makes no difference to him.
The next day comes, and they get ready to go to the beach house. But as they're boarding the bus, they notice a group of Arabs, including Raymond's mistress's brother, staring at them.
When they arrive at the beach house, Marie and Meursault swim together until lunch, when Meursault, Mason, and Raymond all decide to take a walk on the beach. They soon run into the same Arab men. A fight breaks out, and one of the Arabs slashes Raymond with a knife. As Mason takes Raymond to a doctor, Meursault doesn't feel like explaining the story, so he stays on the beach. When Raymond comes back, the two of them decide to walk the beach again when they run into the Arabs again. Meursault takes Raymond's gun, but ends up shooting the main Arab himself when the Arab lunges at him with a knife.
During his prosecution, his lawyer is disgusted when he determines that Meursault showed insensitivity during his mother's funeral, and that even though he probably did love his mother, that didn't mean anything. The prosecutor's closing argument cites Meursault's obvious intelligence and lack of remorse as evidence of premeditated murder. The prosecutor alleges that his lack of grief threatens the moral basis of society.
Meursault insists that he had no intention of killing the man, but when the judge asked him to clarify his motivation, he said it was because of the son. He was then found guilty and sentenced to death by guillotine, which Meursault wanted a huge crowd of people to see him off.
Albert Camus always tried to integrate philosophy into his works of literature. In The Stranger, he makes it a clear theme that sometimes society will naturally over-exaggerate or be irrational in order to create meaning in their life or to compensate for their actions or emotions. This is evident when Meursault is taken advantage of by his prosecutor, who automatically accuses him of being guilty during trial.
The main character, Meursault, is a reserved and timid individual who seemingly wants to be left alone. He receives constant scrutinization about putting his mother in an elderly home, as well as showing seemingly little emotion at her funeral, when in reality, he just wanted the best for her, like any child for their parent. Meursault even describes himself as selfish, since he typically puts his needs before others.
The main philosophical theme portrayed throughout the novel is also shown when on one hot afternoon at the beach, Meursault irrationally murders an Arab man, who is also the brother of his friend Raymond's mistress. Previous to this scene, Raymond and the Arab get into a dramatic fight leading to Raymond wanting to shoot him, but Meursault purposely convinces him not to. After escorting Raymond back to his beach house, Meursault goes back to the spring where the Arab man was left, while Meursault heads down to the beach for no apparent reason. The man comes running after him with a knife, and in defending himself, Mursal shoots the man. However, after the first shot, Mursal intentionally shoots him 4 more times, leaving his body dead in the sand.
Time for the mystery document. In this part of the show, I will read off a random passage from The Stranger, then try to guess which scene it's from. If I guess incorrectly, I will get shocked by this electric shock pen. And if I guess it correctly, I will not be traumatically shocked. Shall we begin? It occurred to me that all I had to do was turn around and that would have been the end of it, but the whole beach, throbbing in the sun, was pressed on my back. I took a few steps towards the spring. The Arab didn't move. Besides, he was still pretty far away. Maybe it was the shadows on his face, but it looked like he was laughing. I waited. The sun started to burn my cheeks, and I could feel drops of sweat gathering in my eyebrows. The sun was the same as it had been the day I buried Maman. And like then, my forehead especially was hurting me, and this time, without getting up, the Arab drew his knife and held it up to me in the sun. I'm not quite sure. Great, I have no idea. Here we go.
Oh, that's so weird.
In the previous passage, Camus is describing the moments leading up to Mursal shooting the Arab man. Mursal is describing himself as sweaty, fidgety, and paranoid, indirectly implying that he is nervous. This is one of the few times in the book where Mursal actually displays extreme emotion.
In The Stranger, Camus indirectly characterizes Mursal as very reserved and an independent person. When Mursal is given the bad news about his mama being dead, his only reaction is, for now it is almost as if Maman weren't dead. He was acting no different than when his mother was alive, indicating that he was very emotionally indifferent.
Mursal first turns into hostility after such ignorance when his mother dies and he doesn't even remember exactly what day it is, saying, Maman died today, or yesterday maybe. I don't know. I got a telegram from home. Mother deceased. Funeral tomorrow. Faithfully yours.
Albert Camus tends to write in choppy diction, making The Stranger a quick and easy read for mature reader.
Having this presence breathing down my neck was starting to annoy me. The room was filling with beautiful late afternoon sunlight. 2 hornets were buzzing against the glass roof. I could feel myself getting sleepy.
Although his diction is simplistic, it is also very descriptive, which easily paints a picture in readers' minds of the scenes and makes it an enjoyable book to read.
Albert Camus leaves off the novel with an element of suspense, making the plot exciting for readers. The book ends right after the court reveals that Mursal is guilty, and right before his public execution by guillotine. However, the upcoming execution is only an inference.
For everything to be consummated, for me to feel less alone, I had only to wish that there be a large crowd of spectators the day of my execution, and that they greet me with cries of hate.
The choice to end the book this way corroborates with the overarching theme that people act irrational to create meaning in their lives. And since the book ends prior to his death, it illustrates that even though Mursal seems he does not care about his life, he is content with his actions and is ready to pass.
Camus' life philosophies were constantly paralleled by Mursal in the book, and at times it seemed that Camus was living out a twisted scenario of his own life through the text. Multiple aspects of each of their lives were almost exactly the same, from their love lives to where they had lived. Both men had lived their lives based on the idea of and theme of the absurd. They believed if they acted without reason, it would all make sense within the meaning of life. And that's all, guys. Thank you for watching Crash Course!